We're in the middle of דיני Mנחה. That's Siman Samach Tes. We learned Aleph and Beis, and we're up to Gimel. Derech Agav, Shtikl Abdoma, maybe a little Milsa B'dichasa, but it's a good shot. He talks about the importance of Mincha. And we know that Tefillah is oversticking. Avraham made Shachas, and Yitzchak made Mincha, and Yaakov made Meidav. So how do we know that Yitzchak made Mincha? Because when Eliezer went to be Mekadesh, a wife for him, and he brought her back, steht in Pasuk about Yetzer Yitzchak Osur Basoda. And it steht over there that when Rivka saw Yitzchak, she fell off the camel. Other one is saying from Sneers that she slided off the camel, But one side of all, why did she fall off? Means that like she lost control. She lost control, and that's why she fell off. What happened that she lost control? But she saw Yitzchak in the field, and her steht in her daven. Now she knew that Avraham made shachos. She didn't know about Mincha. So when she saw that Yitz steht in daven Mincha in the afternoon, what kind of shachos did daven in the afternoon? So Ativa Malgom, she fell off the camel. She lost herself.
She was never so 70, obviously.
Yeah, later she found out that he's making a new tefillah of Mincha, but when she saw it, it was a surprise to her. Okay. So we'll see over here in Gimel. He says, "Also lahasel lecho afilu suda katana samach mincha katana." Now we explained before that there's mincha gedoyva and mincha katana. Mincha gedoyva is what we call 12:30. 12:30 means a half hour after chatzos, and mincha katana is what we call 3:30. Not exactly. It has to do with the Shah's Manias, with the different calculation of what is actually an hour. But we'll talk in simple terms, we'll talk 3:30. Hainu chotzi shah kaidem. A half hour before, you're not allowed to make a suda. The reason, of course, is because by a suda you get involved and may drag, and b'melu you wouldn't daven mincha. Ve'im einay kaveya atzma l'suda, if he's not sitting down to a formal meal, elo she'oichel or sheisa derech aray peides or tafshil afil mechameshes minei doven. If he's eating peides, that's zicha suda saray, and he even calls it suda saray if it's made from chamesh, a meal, like let's say you could call it a piece of kugel. So it's made for chameshes meat and dogim. So also yesh matida. Avol, he says, yesh lahachmer bozeh. You should be machmer even in if it's a suda from chameshes meat and dogim. V'chein also. This is all in the Gemara Shabbos in the beginning of the first Perek, if you remember. V'chein asli konas lemechatz, oivi stopper, samach lemincha katana. Usuda gedoyla, a big meal, kegon sudas nisuyin, oy bris, mila ukadayma, that's considered a big meal. Also the haskell, afila samach lemincha gedoyla. Dahainu, mechatzais hayayim also, elo yamtinu ad zman mincha gedoyla, v'yispalhu kaidem hasuda. Now this is a big chiddush. This means to say that what we call lunch, which is a regular suda, no, so he's saying a suda gedoyla. Suda gedoyla, he's saying, is a wedding. If a wedding was made early in the day, So then you can't start it by mincha. However, he says, this is also geret geworden by someone that doesn't have a minig when he davens mincha. So there's man mincha. But he said, in a place where they call to the shul, there used to be a minig amol that the shamas, people lived in houses, and they didn't have shades and everything, and Venetian blinds or different draperies, but they had what they call ludens. Ludens were shutters. They were like wooden shutters, like you see in today when they have a riot, so people put up wood on their windows. But a mold, they had maybe it was for the goyim that they didn't want the goyim to come and break the windows there. So the shamas would go around and he would knock on the windows and told, like there used to be vaslichas, stay toif yidn avodas habayda. So he says, where there's someone that calls to the basic nesses, the same thing could be if you have on your phone, you have a reminder that a bell that rings, in order it could be, it's the same thing. And it's not just that they call, but he goes to shul. Is mutter hasel suda katana afil somach mincha katana v'gam achakach uvilvad shemiyad shekaydim lebeis hakneses yafsik mimashu oisik l'spalo. So it would mean that the same thing. It's also state also that if there's a minyan kavua, and this din says also by bedikas chametz that before bedikas chametz you're not allowed to also do these things. So if there's a minyan kavua and you go to the minyan kavua, so then it's not a problem. Usuda gedoyla somach mincha ktana, what he called before suda gedoyla, he called was what he called a nisuyin, a wedding. So suda gedoyla somach mincha ktana. Because if it's a suda gedolah, so a wedding, you get involved with the people, and you forget. If it's made even earlier, is also yesh lahachma. Now, why is a bris called a suda gedolah? A bris today. If you go to a bris, usually after the bris, everyone chaps some food and he runs out. Some people chap a coffee, some people chap a bagel and lox, and they go out. And it could be because there's a shaila if by a bris if you need meat. We make most of the bris that they make today, they make it dairy. They make a different kind of fish, lox, other things. But some say that by a bris you need meat. What's the raya by a bris that you need meat? Because in Shulchan Aruch, coming soon to those dinim, in the 9 days you're not allowed to eat meat. And there's a whole shaila in Shulchan Aruch, if you're making a bris, if you're allowed to serve meat. So, and they say that if yes, it should be only a minyan, or people that you would normally like the mishpacha or what. So the chayra, what's the shaila in the 9 days? Serve lax and faltik, serve cream cheese and faltik. That it says a raya from this, they bring a raya from this, that you need meat. And a suda with meat is already considered a suda gedolah. Because a morgen zeiten, meat was, they didn't have meat during the entire Shabbos hat man gehabt a stickel flesh, but who was able to afford meat? So that becomes where the suda gedolah. They tell a story that when the famous chassid, Rabbi,
Excellent.
No. What was his name?
The Bishop of the Masford.
The Bishop of the Masford came to America. and he wrote back a letter to Europe about his visit in America. So one of the places that he visited, besides in New York, was in Buffalo. So some say, I don't know if this is correct or not, but some say that he called Buffalo, I don't know if it was him or someone else, he called Buffalo Ba'afela. And he said that in America, he saw a big chiddush. What was the chiddush? He said, in America, Espen, Fleisch und Kompott jeden Tag. In other words, they didn't have Fleisch and Kompott as dessert. Fleisch und Kompott, that was a big Suda. So that's why the Shulchan Aruch, when it talks about these things, I mean, you have to understand the life setting of the Mechaber of the kids of Shulchan Aruch. I mean, it comes from the big Shulchan Aruch, but how it was years ago. Today it doesn't mean anything. People go out for a meal and they spend $100, $150. Chavafilni can have sagas about all the different type of people that there are. Okay, Zoln Yidden Helm, let them enjoy it. And I once said that there are two words in Yiddish, but it depends how you use the two words. One word is a, and one word is oi. Two words. So he says, when there's people in Mashal, when first I use the minion. First, they say that there's people that when you need a minion and you call the person 6 o'clock in the morning, we need a minion, the person you say, oi, I'm tired, I went to sleep very late, oi. But he knows that they needed the minion, so he gets up and he goes to the minion at the end and he says, Mechaya, I went to the minion. That's one thing. And then the people, when they do something wrong, so in the beginning they say, I went to this place and I had a meal over there for a big amount of money. It's so good. Then after the meals always say, what did I need it? So it's two concepts, the way people conduct themselves. Okay, he says weiter. With Tfilas Mincha, tzricha gamkein netilas yadayim ad hapeirik. You have to wash your hands ad hapeirik. Exactly what ad hapeirik means, it could mean some do just the fingers, and some do till the wrist. That's a different question. U'kemavur le'el b'simen yud beis. And then he says, v'chein b'tfilas ma'ariv, the same thing for ma'ariv, im hifsik acha mincha. If there was, in many shuls, they daven mincha ma'ariv together. Some people daven mincha late in order to daven ma'ariv right after bisman, and there's some people that they daven mincha earlier and they daven right away ma'ariv because they rely on Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that night starts really earlier, so they have to. Let's say they finish work 6 o'clock. Not what I told you last time, that there's a Yekish Minyan in Manhattan that davens mincha ma'ariv together at 6 o'clock. That's based on a Pnei Yeshua. But in the Welt, let's say winter time, it's not the people are finishing work. They daven mincha and they daven ma'ariv and they go home. So he says, "V'chein mit tfilas ma'ariv im hifsek acha mincha, v'chein lemusar im hifsek acha shachas. Damos l'sorach litol yadav." Now, not everyone agrees with this. This is only if he was a Messiah Das. By the Negati and Kippur Mashal, where we make a hefsek of an hour and a half or something like that between Mincha and Ma'ariv, so then, between Musaf and Mincha, so then you said you should wash your hands before Mincha. People go home and they come back. Now he says in
Kippur.
huh?
In Kippur you wash the hands?
What?
In Kippur you wash the hands?
to just the fingers. The fingers. Now he goes on to say in Hey, Ein loima ashrei kaidem mincha, ad sheyehei minyan bebeis hakneses. Now, there's many people. This I'll soon tell you where the shaila is much more than with ashrei. There's people that they're in a rush, so they know they're going to have a minyan, so they say if there's no minyan yet, they say let's say ashrei in the meantime, and then what do they gain? They gain 2 minutes. If we'll have to wait till the minyan comes, it'll take another 2 minutes. So people are in a rush to get back to work or whatever it is. So he says, no, he says, Ein loima ashrei, kaidem mincha, ad sheyehei minyan bebeis hakneses. There should be, now, what's wrong, Taka? If people are in a rush and you want the 2 minutes means so much to them, so what's the problem? He said, the problem is, kidei shehashatz, yaim hakadosh, alma she'amr basara. Because then, if the shots is just going to start iskado 5 minutes or a few minutes later, after the people come in, we have a minyan, say Kaddish. You're not saying Kaddish on the minyan, you're saying Kaddish on the Davish of B'Kedusha. So therefore, wait till you have a minyan for Ashrei, and b'meila, you'll be able to say, Hilas Hashem, not the Baruch Yah, not the Hallelujah, and you say Kaddish on it. V'im Omru Ashrei b'loi minyan, v'achakach nishma minyan. If still there's someone there that's in a rush, and b'meila this 2 minutes means so much to them that they say Kaddish before and then later the minyan came. Yom Eza Mizmor v'achakach Yom Hashatz Kaddish. The shaila is this is really not such a big shaila, because usually it's gated in a minute. I mean, okay. I mean, a minute is important. There's no question about it. The biggest shaila is, I saw this with a machlokes in different svarim. I saw there's a sefer called Tzitz Eliezer. There was a Rav in that you saw by the name of Waldenberg that he wrote about 20 svarim called Tzitz Eliezer, where he discusses the shaila over there. What happens in Moshe in a day when there's a tanis? In a day when there's a tanis, so you read Vayichal. So he has a shaila. Do you have to have a minyan? No. So now there's people that they're fasting, and it's hard for them, so they fast a half a day. So till after mincha. Now till after mincha, does that mean that at 12:30 you have to start Ashrei, and then Vayichal? Or could you start the Moshe at 12:15 Ashrei and Vayichal, and right after that go to Shmoneh? That's a shaila. He's machmor about that. He holds that the Vayichal, the Kriyas HaTorah, also has a shachas to mincha, and you have to start demos. That's more problem than what he discusses here about the 2 minute gap, so to say. This is a thing that Chassidim or the Rebbe is very much against. If anything, Shalei Hafsik Ben Ashrei u'Kadesh. V'im lehoy so hatalas ad acha shoma Ashrei. If he didn't have a talis available, Yisatei v'yayim eze psukim shaleim yayim HaKadosh. In other words, because the putting on the talis could be a hefsek between Ashrei and the Shmoneh Esrei. This is not our minhag. Our minhag is that in the Litvish Welt, Eshkenach, not only mincha, they might have also with a talis. And I think the Rebbe says that it's a pshanim of a sakona to wear a talis. I might have. And he said, I think he also says that if Lamosh is a place where you must put on the talis, there's a lot of things that the Rebbe was asked by people that became Rabbanim in shuls. And the shul, they wore a talis. So the Rebbe said they should be medayik to wear a hat like we do
Mitzvah
by
Kippur.
Mitzvah and Kippur. We wear the talis Mitzvah and Kippur, but we wear a hat. And other than that, if it's during the year, if you have to daven with a talis, and that's the minhag of the shul, so the Rebbe writes that you shouldn't go into machlokes. The prat zolazan ke machlokes. Im hashor dechuka v'karav l'laila. If it's late, let's say they didn't have a minyan and they were waiting for the minyan, and finally they get the minyan, but it's already close to night already, close to laila. Masr hashatz miyad achar kaddish hashmoyne esrei b'kol rom. Now, this is a thing that's popular in the Litvish yeshivas, which they call it a heicha kedusha. A heicha kedusha means that the chazan, when it comes, he says ashrei, and then he says kaddish, and then he continues on with the shmoyne esrei till kedusha, hakera kodesh, and then the olam begins to say shmoyne esrei. It's not that they save a velk amount of time, but they're toilet and bittul Torah. Because we have to learn the whole time, So Mincha takes. They go with the idea that there's really no inyan in Chazoros Hashatz. The whole inyan of Chazoros Hashatz really is to be mitzvah the people that didn't know how to daven. But you don't have people that don't know how to daven, so you really don't need it. But it's a minhag to do it. So they hold that the question of bittul Torah is more important, even though they have time for everything else. But this is the bittul Torah that they're worried about. But he brings over here this halacha here that ima ashor dechukah v'karav l'layla. So masr hashatz miyad achar kaddish hashmoyne esrei b'kol ram. That's with the heicha kedusha. V'tziva lo yispalu el shayim v'oinim ad sheyayim hakera kodesh. What do they gain with this? That when the oilim finish davening the shtil shmoyne esrei, then you just say kaddish and you say aleinu. So they saved the big saving from Atachayim until the end of Simshon. That's what they saved with this thing. Let's see. Oz einim amen mispalim belachash v'yim ashor dechuka b'yisa v'yesh rochash she'im yamtinu al hashatz ad lachash sheyem hakel hakodesh. So lo yisaimu below yisaimu tzilosam ba'od yom. There's going to be a question that this man that's going to go into night already. So yichayim l'espalu miyad im hashatz b'lachash mila b'mila ad hakel hakodesh. This is another thing to do. Sometimes people, especially this happens by shachris a lot. A lot of times by shachris, there's people that came late to shul, and the shul is davening already. So what are they, when it comes shmoyne esrei, they daven the shmoyne esrei together with the chazan, and when the chazan says the kedusha, they say kedusha together with him. He said they should do the same thing by mincha. Also not a thing that which is popular by us. V'toiv im efshe sheyehei lebeis hakneses achar l'chol ha'poros achar sheyana abirchas hashatz amen. Echad sheyana abirchas hashatz. Because this way you're doing it, so you're becoming the chazan. So if the whole minyan is going to do that, so there's no one that's answering after amen on the shliach tzikah. So he's saying that there should be at least one person that should do the other way. Like maybe it could be this person came in to be marshal in the minyan, and he's not b'chal going with the minhag of the shul. So he said there should be at least one person that should answer amen after shliach tzibur, which I told you is I saw it being done by shachris. I saw it being done by Shabbos, by shachris, but other than that, you can't do it. There's a shayla, I don't remember right now exactly, but there's a difference between the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe. If you do this practice, if when it comes to Moshe, you start with the Chazan said Baruch Ata Hashem. You start Baruch Ata Hashem. When it comes to kedusha, how do you do by kedusha? Do you say kedusha with the people now, or do you say the kedusha also with the Chazan? That's the difference in halacha. I got to look up exactly what it is according to the Alter Rebbe. Okay.
Sure.